Now is Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He wrote one of the bipartisan bills to change procedures around the firing of the special counsel. Senator, thank you very much for joining us. This bipartisan legislation that you want to protect Robert Mueller, is it getting new life now that we've seen the developments of the past week?
Well, I'm looking forward to conversations on the floor of the Senate in just a few minutes. I'm going to be talking with both Senator Thom Tillis, my Republican co-sponsor, and with Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. It's my insistence, it will be my insistence to them, that given the revelations by the New York Times, that President Trump months ago attempted to fire Bob Mueller, resolved to do it, and ordered his counsel to do so, and was only blocked by a threat to resign from White House counsel Don McGahn, that it is more urgent than ever that we take this modest, reasonable, bipartisan step, and we do so as quickly as possible. We introduced this bill months ago. It had a hearing before the Judiciary Committee. We've made some small tweaks to it that I'd like to see us reintroduce that could address concerns members of the committee had. I think it's important that we put in place a speed bump that would make it significantly harder for the president to improvidently fire special counsel Robert Mueller.
Do you want to attach it to budget negotiations?
Well, I'm still hopeful that we can get this done in an appropriate bipartisan way through the committee. But it's urgent, and if that ends up being the only pathway in front of us, I would support that as well.
Is your legislation legal, though? Does Congress have the authority to override the executive branch when the executive branch decides to fire somebody?
I'm confident that it is constitutional. I'll remind you that it is a dissent in a majority opinion that those who raised questions at the one hearing we had are relying upon. I won't get into the legal weeds here. I do think there's reason to concern ourselves with whether we can stop the president from firing someone. My bill instead says if he fires the special counsel, that special counsel can go to a three-judge panel and seek reinstatement. I know that's a legal nicety, but it matters in terms of the Constitution.
You don't think that this potentially conflicts with separations of power?
No, there's lots of ways in which each branch constrains the other. Checks and balances is one of the ways in which our constitutional order makes sure that no one branch is completely unrestrained in the exercise of its constitutional duties.
Let's talk about where Donald Trump stands right now on the special counsel. Are you confident that the Republicans in the Senate, the Republicans in the House, will act if he tries to do something like that again?
Well, Katie, I've had a number of individual, private conversations with my Republican colleagues over the last few months. Every single Republican senator and congressman I've spoken to about this agrees that Bob Mueller must be allowed to continue his investigation unimpeded by the president, and that it would be a significant blow to rule of law in this country if the president fired Bob Mueller. When I press them and say, what would you do? They don't have a good answer. They all say, well, it won't happen, or it would be terrible, or something would have to be done. But I'm not confident that they have a plan B. And it is just reckless. It is irresponsible for us as legislators to have this glaring threat to our republic, to our constitutional order right in front of us, and an easy solution to make it less likely and to fail to act.
Well, given that, are you going to try and force your legislation or force some legislation to make sure that he is protected? Are you going to, I mean, if there's not an appetite to do anything with it or a real appetite to move quickly, shouldn't it be attached to budget negotiations?
Katie, the way things get done here is with consent and partnership between the majority and the minority. I can't, on my own, as one senator, run into a budget negotiation and demand that this be included. But I am raising this as an issue with the chairman of the committee, with my Republican co-sponsor, and with lots of my colleagues. I think the facts have changed in the last few days, given the New York Times report. And I think there is reason for all of us to be more concerned. So I appreciate your giving this coverage, and I'm hopeful that in the next few days, Republicans and Democrats alike will agree that this is a small step to secure some more confidence that the president won't take this misguided action.
There's also the Booker-Graham legislation. If you can't come to an agreement on one of those pieces of legislation before the government shutdown, before February, I believe it's 7th or 8th. I can't remember. 8th, excuse me. Would you consider shutting down the government over this?
Look, Katie, that's a hypothetical. I'm going to have some conversations on the floor today and have a much better sense of where my colleagues are. I think this is an important thing for us to take responsibility for as a body on a bipartisan basis.
Senator Chris Coons. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And ahead, the #2 at the FBI stepped down today as